I agree with what Linda is saying. I think one of the great difficulties that experts do face is parties appoint late, somehow thinking that perhaps the matter will settle and therefore they're not having to incur the costs of appointing experts, which are usually quite significant if it's a large, difficult international arbitration, for instance. But what that does do is it places experts in a fairly invidious position. A large arbitration, I have had gigabytes, tens and tens of gigabytes of data just dumped. No structure, no indexing, tens of thousands of documents in PDF format. Somehow you have to make sense of all of that before you can even start the analysis. And that becomes very challenging. My greatest nightmare is that somebody suddenly produces a document that I actually haven't seen, and that somehow that goes to the root of the analysis that has been done. It is incredibly challenging, and you need to find ways to be able to work through that. I think, like Linda, I have a concern that there is a trend, or there appears to be a trend, perhaps coming out of certain cases that were decided in the last couple of years, whereby experts are sampling data. They're not actually undertaking an analysis of the parties' positions, and they may not be in a strong position to be able to do that if you combine that with the time constraints. But you then end up with a report that is founded upon a very small sample of the claims that are being presented by one party. And I had one recently where that sample size was about 2%. And when you took that sample exercise apart, a big proportion of that, over 1.5% of that 2%, actually wasn't even relevant to the claims that were being made. But the expert opposite had taken that and extrapolated that to 100% of the claim submission and asserted that the rest of it must be correct on the basis of that sample. That, to my mind, is not reasonable. I don't even think that's proportionate. And when you're talking about claims that run into tens of millions of dollars, I find that quite shocking, to be perfectly honest with you. And whether that is a product of someone being put in that very difficult position, the first thing they should have said is that this is my provisional opinion based on what I have been able to sample. That's not the way it was presented. There was no qualification to that submission at all. And again, it comes back to what is your role, what is your obligation, and what are the rules within which you actually have to perform that function. And that's always the backstop, in my opinion.